Admiral Kethvar stood before the massive holographic display in the heart of the Zephyrian Imperial Command Center. The display showed the entire galaxy, with billions of stars twinkling in perfect order. Each star had a number. Each planet had a file. Each species had a complete record. This was the Grand Archive, the pride of the Zephyrian Empire. For 3,000 years, the Empire had ruled the galaxy with absolute control. They knew everything about everyone. Every grain of sand on every world was counted. Every breath taken by every living being was recorded. The Grand Archive made this possible. It was a quantum computer network that stretched across 10,000 star systems. Nothing could hide from it. Kethvar had gray skin and 4 arms like all Zephyrians. His uniform was black with golden stripes that showed his high rank. He had been Admiral of Imperial Intelligence for 200 years. In all that time, he had never seen anything that surprised him. The archive knew all. The morning started like any other. Reports came in from across the galaxy. Trade routes were running smoothly. Colonial worlds were producing their quotas. Rebel movements were being crushed before they could grow. Everything was as it should be. Then Lieutenant Vexmol approached with a data pad. His face showed confusion, which was unusual. Zephyrians were trained never to show emotion while on duty. "Admiral, we have received a report from Sector 7 Delta that requires your attention," the lieutenant said. His voice carried a slight tremor. Kethvar took the data pad without looking away from the galaxy display. Sector 7 Delta was on the edge of Empire space. It was mostly empty systems with a few mining colonies. Nothing interesting ever happened there. He looked at the data and froze. The pad showed energy readings from a star system that should not exist. According to the archive, that region of space was empty, just vacuum and cosmic dust. But the sensors were picking up massive industrial activity, power signatures that suggested advanced technology, communication signals that indicated intelligent life. "This must be an error," Kethvar said, but his voice lacked confidence. The archive did not make errors. It had been built by the greatest minds in the Empire. It was maintained by artificial intelligence systems that never slept, never tired, never forgot. "We ran the diagnostics 12 times, Admiral," Lieutenant Vexmol replied. "All systems are functioning perfectly. The energy signatures are real. The system exists, but it is not in our records." Kethvar felt something he had not experienced in decades: uncertainty. He walked to his private terminal and accessed the archive directly. His security clearance was among the highest in the Empire. He could see information that was hidden from almost everyone else. He searched for the coordinates provided by the sensor readings. The archive responded with a simple message: "No data found." He tried different search parameters. He looked for nearby systems, stellar phenomena, anything that might explain the readings. Every search came back empty. The Admiral's 4 hands moved quickly across the control panel. He pulled up historical records, archaeological surveys, even ancient star charts from before the Empire's founding. Nothing. The star system simply did not exist in any database. "Get me Emperor Zethnos on a secure channel," Kethvar ordered. The Emperor's face appeared on the screen within minutes. Zethnos was ancient even by Zephyrian standards. He had ruled the Empire for 800 years. His skin had the deep purple color that came with extreme age, and his eyes glowed with the wisdom of centuries. "Admiral, what requires my immediate attention?" the Emperor asked. His voice was calm, but Kethvar could see the sharp intelligence behind his eyes. "Your Majesty, we have discovered a star system that does not exist in the Grand Archive. It shows signs of advanced industrial civilization, but we have no record of it whatsoever." The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Then he leaned forward in his throne. "That is impossible, Admiral. The archive is complete. We have surveyed every system in the galaxy. We have cataloged every world that can support life. We have contacted every species capable of space travel." "Yes, Your Majesty, that is what we believed, but the sensor data is undeniable. There is a system at coordinates 7 Delta 447 that contains at least 3 planets. The 3rd planet shows massive energy output, consistent with industrial civilization. There are artificial structures in orbit. We are detecting radio transmissions." Emperor Zethnos stood from his throne. In 800 years of rule, very few things had surprised him. This was one of them. "Show me everything," he commanded. Kethvar transmitted all the data to the Imperial Palace. The Emperor studied it carefully, his ancient mind processing the implications. If the archive was incomplete, it meant the Empire's knowledge was flawed. If their knowledge was flawed, their control might be questioned. If their control was questioned, rebellion might follow. Admiral, I want a full investigation. Send a reconnaissance fleet to this system immediately. Find out who these beings are and why they are not in our records. Yes, Your Majesty. What are our orders if they prove hostile? Follow standard first contact protocols. Offer them the choice to join the Empire peacefully or face the consequences. But Admiral, be careful. If they have technology we do not know about, they may be more dangerous than they appear. Kethvar nodded and closed the communication. He immediately began organizing the reconnaissance mission. 12 ships would be enough for first contact. The fleet would include 2 destroyers for protection, 5 science vessels for data gathering, 3 transports for potential evacuation, and 2 command ships for coordination. Captain Veltar was chosen to lead the mission. He was young by Zephyrian standards, only 150 years old, but he had experience with first contact situations. He had successfully brought 17 primitive species into the Empire without firing a shot. His record was perfect. The captain had blue-tinged skin and the lean build of a career space officer. His uniform bore the silver insignia of Fleet Command. He stood at attention as Admiral Kethvar briefed him on the mission. Captain, you are to proceed to the unknown system and establish contact with whatever intelligence you find there. Follow protocol exactly. Record everything. Most importantly, find out how they have remained hidden from the archive. Understood, Admiral. What if they refuse to communicate? Then you make it clear that the Empire is not making a request. Every species in the galaxy serves the Empire or ceases to exist. These aliens will be no different. Captain Veltar saluted with all 4 arms and departed to prepare his fleet. Within 6 hours, the 12 ships were ready for hyperspace jump. The crews were excited. First contact missions were rare and often led to promotions and honors. The ships activated their hyperspace drives and vanished from normal space. The journey to Sector 7 Delta would take 3 days. During the trip, the crews studied what little data they had about the unknown system. The star was a yellow dwarf, similar to the Zephyrian home sun. It had 7 planets, but only the 3rd showed signs of life. The planet was roughly the same size as many Imperial worlds. It had oceans, continents, and an atmosphere that could support most known life forms. But the energy readings were puzzling. The planet was generating power on a scale that suggested very advanced technology. The orbital structures appeared to be space stations or defensive platforms. Most surprising of all, the radio transmissions were using frequencies and modulation patterns that the Empire itself used for military communications. How could primitives know our communication protocols? Wondered Science Officer Nexidal as she studied the data. Perhaps they intercepted our transmissions and learned to copy them, suggested Communications Officer Kelfun. Or perhaps, said Captain Veltar quietly, they are not as primitive as we assume. The 3 days passed quickly. As the fleet prepared to drop out of hyperspace, Captain Veltar addressed his crews over the ship-wide communication system. Officers and crew, we are about to make history. We are going to make contact with a species that has somehow remained hidden from the Empire. This is a great honor and a great responsibility. Follow your training, obey your orders, and remember that you represent the might and dignity of the Zephyrian Empire. The ships dropped back into normal space at the edge of the unknown system. Immediately, their sensors began collecting detailed information about what they found. The system was even more developed than the initial reports had suggested. There were not just structures around the 3rd planet, but around several others as well. Asteroid mining operations, solar collectors, communication relays. This was not a primitive civilization struggling to reach space. This was an advanced interstellar society. Captain Veltar ordered his fleet to approach slowly. Standard protocol required them to remain outside weapons range until communication was established. The aliens might be advanced, but they were still unknown. Caution was always wise. As they moved deeper into the system, more details became visible. The 3rd planet had several moons, and each moon had been extensively developed. Space elevators reached down to the planet's surface. Massive shipyards floated in the outer atmosphere. This civilization was not just advanced, it was thriving. Captain, called Sensor Officer Thexmar from his station, I am detecting multiple ships moving to intercept our fleet. How many ships? At least 20, sir. Possibly more. They are approaching from different vectors as if they were already in position and waiting for us. Captain Veltar felt a chill run through his body. If the aliens were already in position, it meant they had been detected long before entering the system. It meant the aliens had sensor technology that could track ships in hyperspace. The Empire possessed such technology, but it was among their most advanced and closely guarded secrets. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. "Use standard first contact frequency." Communications Officer Kelfun worked at his controls for several minutes. "Sir, I'm receiving a response." "They are using our own communication protocols, but the language is unknown." "Put it on speakers." The bridge filled with strange sounds. The alien language was unlike anything in the Imperial databases. It used tones and rhythms that seemed almost musical, but somehow it also sounded vaguely familiar, as if it shared roots with languages the crew knew. "Can the translation computers make any sense of it?" asked Captain Veltar. "Working on it, sir. But this may take some time. The language structure is very complex." As the alien ships drew closer, the Zephyrian fleet could see them more clearly. The alien vessels were sleek and elegant, with lines that seemed to flow like water. Their hulls were dark, almost black, and they moved with a grace that Imperial ships could not match. "Captain," Sensor Officer Thexmar called out, his voice tense. "Those ships are not showing up properly on our sensors. I can see them visually, but they are not registering on our targeting systems." "What do you mean?" "I mean our computers cannot lock onto them. It is as if they are not really there." Captain Veltar stared at the approaching ships through the main viewing window. They were clearly visible, clearly real. But if the sensors could not track them properly, it meant they possessed stealth technology beyond Imperial understanding. For the first time since leaving Imperial space, Captain Veltar began to wonder if this mission might be more dangerous than anyone had expected. These aliens were not primitives who had been accidentally overlooked. They were an advanced civilization with technology that rivaled or exceeded Imperial capabilities. And they had remained completely hidden from the Grand Archive, the most powerful information system ever created. The question was no longer who these aliens were or why they were not in Imperial records. The question was whether the Zephyrian Empire was about to encounter something it had never faced before, an equal. As the alien ships took position surrounding the Imperial fleet, Captain Veltar knew that everything was about to change. The Empire's long era of unchallenged dominance might be coming to an end. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the command center of New Terra's orbital defense station. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see the blue and green planet below. New Terra was humanity's pride, a world they had transformed from a barren rock into a garden paradise over the course of 2 centuries. But today, Sarah was not admiring the view. Her attention was focused on the holographic display showing 12 alien ships approaching their system. The ships had appeared 3 days ago at the edge of sensor range, moving steadily toward the inner planets. Sarah was tall and lean, with short black hair and sharp green eyes. She had spent 30 years in the Colonial Defense Force, rising through the ranks by being smarter and more determined than her competition. At 45, she was one of the youngest defense commanders in human space, and one of the most respected. "Status report," she called to her staff. Lieutenant Commander Mark Rodriguez looked up from his console. He was Sarah's intelligence officer, responsible for analyzing threats to the colony. His dark face was grim as he delivered his assessment. The alien fleet consists of 12 vessels of unknown design. They are maintaining a steady approach vector toward New Terra. Based on their acceleration patterns, they should reach orbital distance in approximately 6 hours. "Any attempt at communication?" "Negative, Commander. They have been scanning our system continuously but have not responded to any of our hail attempts." Sarah nodded grimly. This was humanity's 4th encounter with alien intelligence, and the previous 3 had not gone well. The Arcturus incident had cost the lives of 50,000 colonists. The Vega massacre had wiped out an entire research station. The Proxima War had lasted 6 years and ended only when humanity developed weapons capable of cracking planets. Each time, the aliens had approached peacefully. Each time they had studied human settlements and defenses. And each time, they had attacked without warning once they believed they understood human capabilities. Humanity had learned from these encounters. They had learned that in the galaxy, peace was a luxury that only the strong could afford. They had learned that aliens who came asking questions were usually preparing for conquest. Most importantly, they had learned that the best defense was often a good offense. "What do we know about their technology?" Sarah asked. Commander Lisa Park, the chief science officer, consulted her datapad. She was a small woman with silver hair and intelligent blue eyes. She had been studying the alien ships since they first appeared. "Their vessels show technology roughly equivalent to our own," she reported. "Their engines produce energy signatures consistent with antimatter drives. Their hulls appear to be standard neutronium composites. Their weapons systems are not currently active, but we can see hardpoints for particle beam arrays and missile tubes. Standard Imperial design, then," Sarah mused. All the alien races humanity had encountered so far seemed to follow similar technological paths. They used similar materials, similar energy sources, similar weapons. It was as if there was a galactic standard for spaceship design that everyone followed except humans. "Commander," called Ensign David Kim from the communications station, "the aliens are now broadcasting on multiple frequencies. They appear to be using mathematical concepts as a basis for communication." Sarah walked over to Kim's station. On his screen, she could see a series of symbols and numbers. Prime numbers, mathematical constants, geometric shapes. It was the universal method for establishing first contact with alien intelligence. "Standard first contact protocol," she said. "Are they expecting a response?" "It appears so, Commander. But based on our previous encounters—" "I know," Sarah interrupted. "Mathematical communication is usually followed by demands for surrender." The young ensign looked surprised. "Commander, these might be different. Maybe they really do want peaceful contact." Sarah looked at the young man with sympathy. He was fresh from the academy, full of hope and optimism. He had not lived through the previous alien encounters. He had not seen entire colonies reduced to radioactive ash because humans had been too trusting. "Ensign, how long have you been in the Colonial Defense Force?" 2 years, Commander. I've been doing this for 30 years. In that time, I've learned that aliens who approach human colonies usually have the same goal. They want to determine how much force will be needed to conquer us. The mathematical communication is just the first step in their intelligence gathering process. She turned to address her entire staff. "Listen carefully, all of you. These aliens may look peaceful, but they are conducting a military reconnaissance. They are scanning our defenses, studying our response patterns, and preparing for an attack. We will not make the same mistake our predecessors made. We will not wait for them to strike first." Commander Rodriguez leaned forward in his chair. "Commander, what are your orders?" Sarah studied the tactical display showing the approaching alien fleet. 12 ships was a significant force, but not overwhelming. New Terra's defenses had been designed to handle much larger threats. "Bring all defense platforms online," she ordered. "Charge the main batteries and prepare for combat. Deploy stealth fighters to attack positions, and send a priority message to Earth Fleet Command. Tell them we have contact with hostile aliens and may need reinforcement." The command center immediately became a flurry of activity. Officers ran to their battle stations. Warning sirens began to sound throughout the orbital platforms. On New Terra's surface, civilian populations began moving to underground shelters that had been prepared for exactly this situation. The defense network around New Terra was impressive. Humanity had learned from their previous encounters that colonies needed to be able to defend themselves. Orbiting the planet were 24 armed stations, each capable of destroying capital ships. Hidden in nearby asteroid fields were another 36 weapons platforms, disguised as mining facilities. In space docks throughout the system, 112 fighter craft were preparing for launch. But the most dangerous part of New Terra's defenses was something the aliens could not see. Humanity had developed a new type of weapon based on their study of alien technology. Antimatter missiles that could phase through shields. Particle beams that could bend space itself. Gravity bombs that could create artificial black holes. "Commander," reported Lieutenant Commander Park, "the alien ships are now conducting detailed scans of our orbital facilities. They are using active sensors to penetrate our defensive screens." "That confirms it," Sarah said grimly. "They're gathering intelligence for an attack. How long until they reach engagement range?" 4 hours at current speed. Sarah made her decision. "We're not going to wait 4 hours. Launch all stealth fighters immediately. Target the lead alien vessels. When I give the signal, hit them with everything we have." The stealth fighters were humanity's newest weapon. They were small, fast, and nearly invisible to most sensor systems. Each fighter carried enough firepower to disable a capital ship, and they were piloted by humans enhanced with direct neural interfaces to their ship's computers. 112 fighters launched from hidden bays throughout the system. They moved in complete silence, their engines producing no detectable emissions. To the alien sensors, space appeared empty except for the obvious defensive platforms. "Fighters in position," reported Flight Commander Torres over the communication system, awaiting orders to engage. Sarah watched the alien ships continue their approach. They showed no signs of awareness that they were about to be attacked. Their sensors were focused on the obvious targets, the orbital stations and the planet itself. They had not detected the hidden fighters or the disguised weapons platforms. "Alien vessels are now attempting direct communication," reported Ensign Kim. "They are broadcasting in what appears to be their own language. Put it on speakers." The command center filled with strange alien sounds. The language was musical and complex, with tones that seemed to rise and fall like songs. But Sarah had heard similar sounds before, during the Proxima War. She recognized the formal cadence of military communications. "Commander Park, can the translation computers make any sense of it?" "Working on it, Commander. The language structure is similar to other alien languages we've encountered, but there are significant differences. Based on preliminary analysis, they appear to be demanding identification and requesting permission to approach." "Standard procedure before an attack," Sarah observed. "They want us to respond so they can analyze our communication systems and learn about our technology." The alien ships were now close enough that their individual features could be seen clearly. They were sleek and elegant, with flowing curves that suggested advanced engineering. Their hulls were dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of fish swimming through space. "Beautiful ships," commented Commander Rodriguez. "All alien ships are beautiful," Sarah replied. "Beauty is a sign of advanced technology. It's also a sign of arrogance. Aliens who build beautiful ships believe they are superior to everyone else in the galaxy." She opened a channel to all defense platforms. "All units, this is Commander Chen. We are now at condition red. Target the alien vessels and prepare to fire on my command. Remember, we do not fire warning shots. We do not give them a chance to escape. When we attack to kill." "Commander," Ensign Kim called out urgently, "the aliens are now scanning our cities. They're using penetrating sensors to examine our civilian populations." That was the final confirmation Sarah needed. The aliens were not here for peaceful first contact. They were conducting a complete intelligence assessment of human capabilities and vulnerabilities. They were preparing for conquest. "All units fire at will," Sarah commanded. Space around New Terra erupted in violence. The hidden weapons platforms revealed themselves, unleashing concentrated antimatter beams at the alien ships. The stealth fighters attacked from all directions, their advanced missiles seeking the aliens' most vulnerable systems. The orbital defense stations opened fire with weapons that could crack moons in half. The aliens were caught completely off guard. They had been so focused on studying the obvious defenses that they had missed the hidden ones. Their shields flared and collapsed under the massive barrage. Their hulls cracked and split as antimatter explosions tore through their ships. But the aliens were not helpless. As soon as the attack began, they returned fire with their own weapons. Particle beams lanced out toward the human defense platforms. Missiles streaked across space toward New Terra's orbital stations. The aliens might have been surprised, but they were still dangerous. "Damage report," Sarah called out as the command center shook from a near miss. "Defense Platform 7 has taken heavy damage," reported Rodriguez. "Platform 12 is not responding. Fighter Squadrons 4 and 7 have taken casualties." On the main display, Sarah could see the battle raging across the entire system. Explosions lit up space like deadly fireworks. Ships on both sides were dying, their crews fighting desperately for survival. But humanity had the advantage of preparation and superior positioning. The aliens had walked into a trap, and they were paying the price for their arrogance. "Alien ship number 4 is breaking apart," announced Park. "Ship number 7 has lost main power. Ship number 2 is attempting to retreat." "Don't let any of them escape," Sarah ordered. "If even one ship gets away, they'll report back to their superiors. The next fleet will be larger and better prepared." The battle raged for 20 minutes. When it was over, 11 of the 12 alien ships had been destroyed. The sole survivor was badly damaged, its engines failing and its hull breached in multiple places. "Commander," reported Flight Commander Torres, The surviving alien ship is broadcasting a surrender signal. Negative, Sarah replied without hesitation. No prisoners. Finish it. Commander, they're no longer a threat. Maybe we should— That's an order, Commander Torres. Destroy that ship. The last alien vessel died in a ball of plasma as antimatter missiles tore it apart. The battle was over. Humanity had won another victory against alien aggression. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The aliens had found new Terra, which meant they would find other human colonies. More fleets would come, larger and better armed. The war that had begun at Proxima was spreading across the galaxy. Send a message to all human colonies, she ordered. Tell them we've made contact with another hostile alien species. Tell them to prepare their defenses, and tell them that once again, humanity stands alone in a galaxy that wants us dead. As she watched the wreckage of the alien fleet drift through space, Sarah felt the familiar weight of command. She had saved New Terra, but at what cost? How many more battles would humanity have to fight? How many more colonies would be attacked? The galaxy was vast and full of aliens who saw humans as either slaves or threats. There was no room for mercy, no time for second chances. In space, only the strong survived, and humanity intended to be the strongest of all. The unknown alien fleet had been destroyed, but Sarah knew this was just the first move in a much larger game. Somewhere out there, alien commanders were planning their next attack. They would come in greater numbers with better weapons, and they would show no mercy. But they would find that humanity was ready for them. Humans had learned the hard lessons of interstellar warfare. They had become what the galaxy had forced them to become, the most dangerous species in known space. Admiral Kethvar stared at the debris field displayed on his holographic projector. The twisted metal and scattered plasma clouds were all that remained of Captain Veltar's reconnaissance fleet. 11 ships destroyed, one barely functional survivor limping back to Imperial space with a crew half dead from radiation poisoning. The Admiral's 4 hands clenched into fists as he read the survivor reports for the 3rd time. The accounts were barely believable. Unknown aliens with technology that exceeded Imperial capabilities, weapons that struck from impossible angles, ships that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. It sounded like the fever dreams of dying crew members, not the tactical assessment of trained Imperial officers. This cannot be accurate, Admiral Kethvar muttered to himself. No species possesses technology superior to the Empire. Lieutenant Vexmal approached carefully. The young officer had been monitoring communications from the survivor ship as it made its way back to the nearest Imperial base. His face showed the same confusion and fear that was spreading throughout the intelligence division. Admiral, we have received additional data from Captain Veltar's flagship before it was destroyed. The information has been verified by 3 separate analysis teams. Kethvar took the data crystal with one of his hands while continuing to study the holographic display with his eyes. The information it contained challenged everything the Empire believed about their place in the galaxy. The unknown aliens had not simply defeated the Imperial fleet through luck or primitive determination. They had outfought Imperial ships using tactics and weapons that violated known physics. Their vessels had moved through space in ways that suggested mastery over gravity itself. Their attacks had penetrated Imperial shields as if they did not exist. Have you shared this information with anyone else? The Admiral asked. No, sir. As per your orders, all data regarding the unknown species has been classified at the highest levels. Good, thought Kethvar. The last thing the Empire needed was panic spreading through the ranks. If word got out that there was a species capable of destroying Imperial fleets, it could undermine the authority that held their vast civilization together. The Admiral activated his private communication system and requested an immediate audience with Emperor Zithnos. Within minutes, the ancient ruler's image appeared on the secure display. Admiral, I trust you have answers regarding the destruction of our reconnaissance fleet. Your Majesty, the situation is more serious than we initially believed. The unknown species possesses military technology that appears to exceed our own capabilities. They destroyed 11 ships while suffering no casualties themselves. Emperor Zithnos leaned forward on his throne. In 800 years of rule, he had never faced a military defeat of this magnitude. The Empire had grown strong by conquering primitive species and absorbing their resources. The idea that there might be a species capable of challenging Imperial supremacy was deeply troubling. Explain to me exactly what happened. Admiral, Kethvar activated the tactical display and shared the data from the battle. The Emperor watched in silence as the hologram showed Imperial ships being systematically destroyed by weapons that seemed to bend space and time. These aliens struck without warning, Your Majesty. They showed no interest in communication or negotiation. They appeared to be defending their territory, but their response was far more aggressive than anything we have encountered before. What is your assessment of their intentions? The Admiral paused before answering. This was the question that had been keeping him awake for the past 72 hours. The unknown aliens had demonstrated overwhelming military superiority, but they had not pursued the surviving Imperial ship. They had not expanded beyond their own system. They appeared content to remain in their territory as long as others stayed away. I believe they are territorial but not expansionist, Your Majesty. However, their technology level suggests they could be a threat to Imperial security if they choose to become aggressive. Emperor Zithnos stood from his throne and walked to his own tactical display. The galaxy spread out before him, showing the vast expanse of Imperial space, 10,000 star systems, trillions of citizens, the greatest civilization in galactic history. And now somewhere in that vast space, there was a species that could threaten it all. Admiral, I want you to organize a full investigation fleet. Find out everything about these aliens. Learn their capabilities, their weaknesses, their intentions. Use whatever resources you need. How large a fleet, Your Majesty? Large enough to defend itself if attacked, but not so large as to appear threatening. We do not want to provoke a war we might not be able to win. Cathvar nodded. The Emperor was being wise. If the unknown aliens were as powerful as they appeared, rushing in with a massive invasion force could be disastrous. Better to approach carefully and gather information. I recommend Battle Marshal Thorak to lead the investigation, Your Majesty. He has more experience with first contact situations than any other commander. Agreed. Give Battle Marshal Thorak 50 ships, elite crews only. And, Admiral? Make sure they understand they are on an intelligence-gathering mission, not a conquest. The communication ended, and Admiral Cathvar immediately began organizing the investigation fleet. Battle Marshal Thorak was summoned from his command post on the Imperial frontier. The 50 best ships in the fleet were selected and their crews given special briefings on the mission. Battle Marshal Thorak was a legend in the Imperial military. He was older than most Zephyrians, with deep purple skin that showed his advanced age. He had commanded Imperial forces for 400 years and had never lost a battle. His tactical genius was matched only by his absolute loyalty to the Empire. When Thorak arrived at Imperial command, Admiral Cathvar briefed him personally on the mission. The battle marshal listened carefully to the reports from the reconnaissance fleet, studying every detail of the alien weapons and tactics. These aliens fought like they knew our capabilities in advance, Thorak observed after reviewing the data. Their positioning was perfect. Their timing was precise. It was as if they had studied Imperial tactics and prepared specifically to counter them. That was my conclusion as well, Battle Marshal. But how could they know our tactics if they are not in our records? Thorak was quiet for a long moment, his ancient mind working through the possibilities. Perhaps they have been observing us without our knowledge. Perhaps they have encountered Imperial forces before and learned from those encounters. Or perhaps... He paused, unwilling to voice the most disturbing possibility. What, Battle Marshal? Perhaps they are not unknown to us. Perhaps they are in our records but under a different classification. Perhaps we have been wrong about their capabilities. The idea was deeply troubling. The Grand Archive contained information about every species in the galaxy. If the unknown aliens were actually a known species that had been misclassified, it meant the archive was flawed. And if the archive was flawed, the entire foundation of Imperial knowledge could be questioned. I want you to investigate that possibility as well, Admiral Cathvar ordered. Check every entry in the archive. Look for any species that might have been underestimated or misidentified. Battle Marshal Thorak saluted and departed to prepare his fleet. Within 24 hours, 50 Imperial warships were ready for departure. These were not exploration vessels like Captain Veltar's command. These were battle-tested warships with experienced crews and the latest Imperial technology. The investigation fleet included 10 heavy cruisers, 20 destroyers, 15 science vessels, and 5 command ships. Each vessel was equipped with the most advanced sensors and communication equipment available. If there were answers to be found about the unknown aliens, this fleet would find them. As the fleet prepared to depart, Battle Marshal Thorak addressed his commanders over a secure communication channel. Officers, We are embarking on a mission that may determine the future of our empire. We are investigating a species that has demonstrated the ability to destroy Imperial forces. We will approach with caution, gather information, and avoid unnecessary conflict. But make no mistake, if we are attacked, we will respond with the full might of Imperial military power. The 50 ships activated their hyperspace drives and disappeared from Imperial space. The journey to the unknown system would take 5 days, giving the crews time to study everything known about their destination. During the journey, Battle Marshal Thorak spent hours reviewing the data from Captain Veltar's mission. The more he studied the alien tactics, the more convinced he became that these beings had specific knowledge of Imperial military procedures. Their attacks had targeted the exact weaknesses in Imperial ship design. Their positioning had exploited standard Imperial formation patterns. On the 3rd day of the journey, the fleet's intelligence officers made a disturbing discovery. Deep in the archive's historical records, they found references to energy signatures similar to those detected in the unknown system. The references dated back over 2,000 years, to the early days of Imperial expansion. Battle Marshal, reported Intelligence Officer Kylmon, we have found fragmentary records of a species encountered during the first expansion. The records are incomplete, but they describe beings with advanced technology who retreated rather than fight the Empire. What happened to them? According to the records, they simply disappeared. Their worlds were found abandoned. No trace of their civilization remained. It was assumed they had destroyed themselves rather than submit to Imperial rule. Battle Marshal Thorak studied the ancient records carefully. The energy signatures were indeed similar to those detected in the current unknown system. But if this was the same species, it meant they had not destroyed themselves. They had hidden themselves and spent 2,000 years developing their technology. If these are the same beings, Thorak mused, then they have had 2 millennia to prepare for our return. They have watched us expand across the galaxy. They have learned our strengths and weaknesses. They have become what they needed to become to survive. The implications were staggering. The Empire had believed itself to be expanding into empty space, conquering primitive species and claiming uninhabited worlds. But what if they had been watched the entire time? What if there were other species like these aliens, hiding in systems the Empire considered empty, preparing for the day when they would be strong enough to challenge Imperial dominance? On the 5th day, the investigation fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the unknown system. Immediately, their sensors detected something that made Battle Marshal Thorak's blood run cold. The system was not empty except for the 3rd planet. There were artificial structures around multiple planets, mining operations in the asteroid belts, communication relays throughout the system. This was not the home system of a single species struggling to reach space. This was the heart of an advanced interstellar civilization. Battle Marshal, reported Sensor Officer Dax Nell from the flagship's bridge. I am detecting multiple fleets moving to intercept our position, at least 100 ships, possibly more. Thorak looked at the tactical display and felt something he had not experienced in 400 years of military service: uncertainty. The alien fleets were not hiding or retreating. They were approaching openly, confident in their ability to handle whatever the Empire might send against them. Open a communication channel, Thorak ordered. Let us see what these beings have to say. The response came within minutes, broadcast on frequencies that the Empire considered military secrets. But what shocked the Battle Marshal was not the aliens' knowledge of Imperial communication protocols. What shocked him was the voice that came through the speakers. The alien spokesperson spoke in perfect Zephyrian, with the accent and formal grammar of the Imperial court. The language required 11 vocal cords and complex subsonic harmonics. No non-Zephyrian species should have been able to speak it. Imperial fleet, you have entered the territory of humanity. We suggest you identify yourselves and state your intentions. Battle Marshal Thorak stared at the communication console in disbelief. The aliens not only knew the Imperial language, they spoke it better than many Imperial citizens. They were not primitives who had stumbled upon advanced technology. They were a sophisticated civilization that had been preparing for this encounter for a very long time. And they called themselves humanity. Battle Marshal Thorak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Imperial Dominance, watching the approaching human fleet with growing unease. 120 ships were moving toward his position in perfect formation. The vessels were unlike anything in the Imperial databases, sleek, dark, and moving with a grace that seemed to defy physics. The humans had responded to his request for communication with a simple message: Battle Marshal Thorak of the Zephyrian Empire, you are not welcome in human space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The fact that they knew his name and rank was disturbing enough. The fact that they spoke perfect Zephyrian was almost impossible to believe. But what truly shocked the Battle Marshal was their casual dismissal of Imperial authority. Every species in the galaxy feared the Empire. These humans seemed merely annoyed by their presence. Sir, called Communications Officer Nelvar, the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. They appear to be coordinating their fleet movements using quantum encryption methods that we have never seen before. Are you able to break their encryption? No, sir. The mathematical complexity is beyond our current capabilities. But Battle Marshal, there's something else. They're using our own military codes as a foundation for their encryption. It's as if they took our most secure protocols and improved them. Thorak felt a chill run down his spine. Imperial military codes were among the most closely guarded secrets in the galaxy. Only the highest-ranking officers had access to the complete encryption keys. If the humans possessed this information, it meant they had been studying the Empire for a very long time. Admiral Rebecca Torres stood on the bridge of the human flagship Indomitable, studying the Imperial fleet through her tactical display. She was a woman of average height with steel-gray hair and intelligent brown eyes. At 58, she was one of humanity's most experienced fleet commanders, having fought in the Proxima War and the subsequent conflicts with alien species. Analysis? She asked her tactical officer. Commander James Park consulted his displays. 50 Imperial ships, Battle Marshal. Standard Zephyrian configuration. 10 heavy cruisers, 20 destroyers, 15 science vessels, 5 command ships. Their technology appears consistent with what we observed in the first contact incident. Weaknesses? Same as before. Their shields operate on predictable frequency patterns. Their weapon systems have limited firing arcs. Their formation tactics follow standard Imperial doctrine that we studied from captured databases. Admiral Torres nodded. Humanity had been preparing for this encounter for decades. When the first Imperial reconnaissance fleet had been destroyed, human intelligence had analyzed every piece of wreckage, every energy signature, every tactical pattern. They knew Imperial capabilities better than most Imperial officers. Signal the fleet, Torres ordered. Implement Battle Plan Omega-7. Surround them, but do not fire unless they attack first. I want to see how they respond to pressure. The human fleet began to move, 120 ships taking positions around the Imperial formation. They moved with perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. Their formation was unlike anything Battle Marshal Thorak had ever seen. Complex, fluid, and somehow beautiful. Battle Marshal, reported Tactical Officer Hextall from his station on the Imperial flagship. The human ships are taking attack positions. They have us completely surrounded. How many ships? 120 confirmed. Possibly more that we cannot detect. Sir, their movement patterns are unusual. Thorak looked at the tactical display and saw what his officer meant. The human ships were not following standard fleet doctrine. They moved in patterns that created overlapping fields of fire while maintaining perfect defensive spacing. It was as if they had studied every possible Imperial counter-tactic and prepared responses to all of them. Open a channel to the human flagship, Thorak ordered. The main screen activated, showing the bridge of the human vessel. Battle Marshal Thorak found himself looking at a being that appeared completely unremarkable by galactic standards. The human commander was bipedal, carbon-based, and followed evolutionary patterns common throughout the galaxy. She looked like she could be from any of a dozen species that the Empire had conquered over the centuries, but her eyes held an intelligence that was anything but common. When she looked at Battle Marshal Thorak, it was as if she could see right through him, analyzing his capabilities and finding them wanting. I am Admiral Rebecca Torres of the Terran Defense Force, the human said in perfect Zephyrian. You are trespassing in human space, Battle Marshal. Explain your presence here. I am Battle Marshal Thorak of the Zephyrian Empire. We are conducting a peaceful investigation into your species. We request permission to conduct scientific surveys and establish diplomatic relations. Admiral Torres smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. Peaceful investigation? Is that what you call the 12 ships that attacked our colony at New Terra? That was a reconnaissance mission that encountered unexpected resistance. We had no intention of harming your people. Your reconnaissance mission conducted detailed scans of our civilian populations and military installations. Your ships targeted our defense platforms with active sensor sweeps. In human space, Battle Marshal, such actions are considered acts of war. Thorak felt the conversation slipping away from him. The human admiral was not intimidated by Imperial authority. She spoke as an equal, not as a subject species seeking Imperial protection. Worse, she seemed to know more about Imperial procedures than she should. Admiral Torres, the Zephyrian Empire has maintained peace in this galaxy for 3,000 years. Every intelligent species has found prosperity and protection under Imperial rule. We offer the same to humanity. Protection from whom, Battle Marshal? You are the only species we have encountered that attacks without provocation. Your Empire's idea of peace seems to require the submission of every other species in the galaxy. The accusation stung because it was essentially accurate. The Empire did maintain peace by eliminating potential threats before they could develop into serious challenges. But no species had ever described Imperial policy so bluntly or with such obvious contempt. Admiral Torres, humanity cannot stand alone against the galaxy. There are threats in space that require the combined strength of all civilized species. The Empire offers unity and mutual defense. We appreciate the offer, Battle Marshal, but humanity has learned to defend itself. We have no need for Imperial protection. As if to emphasize her point, the human fleet began to demonstrate capabilities that made Battle Marshal Thorak's tactical officers gasp in amazement. Individual ships began to phase shift, becoming partially transparent and immune to sensor targeting. Others generated gravitational fields that bent light around them, making them effectively invisible. Still others seemed to split into multiple copies of themselves, creating false targets that appeared completely real to Imperial sensors. Battle Marshal, whispered Tactical Officer Hextall, their ships are doing things that violate known physics. How are they generating gravitational fields without massive power sources? How are they phase-shifting matter without dimensional breach technology? Thorak had no answer. The humans were demonstrating mastery over forces that the Empire barely understood, let alone controlled. If they could manipulate gravity and space-time itself, their weapons' capabilities were probably far beyond Imperial estimates. Admiral Torres continued speaking as if her fleet's impossible maneuvers were perfectly normal. Battle Marshal, humanity has been watching your Empire for a very long time. We know your history, your tactics, your capabilities. We know that you offer species two choices: surrender or extinction. We are here to inform you that humanity chooses a third option. What third option? Independence. We will not submit to Imperial rule, but we also have no interest in conquering Imperial space. We suggest a simple arrangement. You stay in your territory and we will stay in ours. Battle Marshal Thorak felt his four hands clench into fists. No species had ever spoken to the Empire with such casual dismissal. The humans were treating the greatest civilization in galactic history as if it were just another minor power to be negotiated with. Admiral Torres, the Empire cannot allow potentially hostile species to develop unchecked. If you refuse Imperial protection, you will be considered a threat to galactic stability. The human admiral's expression hardened. Are you threatening us, Battle Marshal? I am explaining reality, Admiral. The Empire has maintained peace for 3 millennia. By preventing the kind of conflicts that arise when multiple species compete for the same resources. Unity under Imperial leadership is not optional. I see. So this is not a diplomatic mission at all. You came here to demand our surrender. And when we refused, you decided to demonstrate Imperial superiority. Is that correct? Thorak realized he had been maneuvered into a position where any answer would sound threatening. The human admiral had forced him to admit that the Empire would not accept human independence. But perhaps it was time for these aliens to understand the realities of galactic politics. Admiral Torres, your species has impressive technology, but you cannot stand against the full might of the Zephyrian Empire. We have 10,000 star systems under our control. We command fleets numbering in the millions of ships. We offer you the chance to join us peacefully, before circumstances force a military solution. Admiral Torres was quiet for a moment, as if considering his words carefully. Then she smiled again, and this time there was something predatory in the expression. Battle Marshal, you seem to believe that superior numbers guarantee victory. Let me share something that humanity learned during our early wars. It doesn't matter how many ships you have if they can't hit what they're shooting at. Before Thorak could respond, the human fleet struck. The attack came from all directions simultaneously. Human ships that had appeared to be holding defensive positions suddenly revealed themselves to be in perfect attack formation. Weapons that had been hidden became visible as they fired. Ships that had seemed far away were suddenly close enough to target specific systems on Imperial vessels. But what shocked Battle Marshal Thorak was not the coordination of the attack. What shocked him was the weapons themselves. The humans were not using particle beams or missile systems like every other species in the galaxy. They were using weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Gravitational lances that crushed Imperial ships by increasing their local gravity to impossible levels. Phase cannons that fired projectiles that passed through shields and armor as if they didn't exist. Quantum disruptors that seemed to simply delete sections of Imperial vessels from reality. Shields at 60% and falling, reported Chief Engineer Moltek from his station. Battle Marshal, their weapons are ignoring our defensive systems. I don't understand how they're penetrating our barriers. Return fire, Thorak ordered. All ships engage the enemy. The Imperial fleet responded with everything they had. Particle beams lanced out toward human ships. Antimatter missiles streaked across space seeking their targets. The combined firepower of 50 Imperial warships lit up the darkness between the stars. But their weapons seemed to have no effect. Human ships absorbed particle beam strikes without showing damage. Missiles passed right through their targets as if firing at ghosts. It was as if the humans existed in a different dimension where Imperial weapons simply could not touch them. Battle Marshal, called Sensor Officer Daxnell, his voice tight with disbelief. Our weapons are not reaching their targets. The human ships appear to be shifting out of normal space-time when we fire at them. Admiral Torres's voice came over the communication channel, calm and professional despite the battle raging around them. Battle Marshal Thorak, your weapons are impressive, but they operate on principles that humanity mastered and surpassed decades ago. We offer you one final chance to withdraw from human space. Never, Thorak replied through gritted teeth. The Empire does not retreat. Then you have made your choice. The human attack intensified. Imperial ships began to disappear one by one, not destroyed in spectacular explosions but simply ceasing to exist. The humans were demonstrating precision that was almost surgical, eliminating specific vessels while leaving others untouched. Thorak watched his fleet being systematically dismantled by an enemy he couldn't even hit. In 400 years of military service, he had never experienced anything like this. The humans were not just superior. They were so far beyond Imperial capabilities that it was like watching primitives fight against gods. Battle Marshal, reported Communications Officer Nelvar, we are receiving a transmission from the human flagship. They are requesting your surrender. Thorak looked around his bridge at his officers. They were all experienced veterans who had served the Empire faithfully for decades. None of them had ever considered the possibility of surrender, because the Empire had never faced defeat. But as he watched his fleet dissolve around him, Battle Marshal Thorak realized that 400 years of victories meant nothing when facing an enemy that could rewrite the rules of warfare itself. Open the channel, he said. Quietly, Admiral Torres appeared on the screen again. Behind her, Thorak could see human officers working calmly at their stations, as if the destruction of an Imperial fleet was routine business. Battle Marshal, are you prepared to discuss terms? Emperor Zithnos stood in the Great Hall of the Imperial Palace, surrounded by the Empire's highest-ranking officials. The circular chamber had been the center of galactic government for 3,000 years, its crystal walls displaying the lights of 10,000 star systems under Imperial control. Today, those lights seemed dimmer somehow. The emergency session of the Supreme Council had been called after Battle Marshal Thorak's fleet returned to Imperial space. Of the 50 ships that had departed for human space, only 12 had returned. The others had not been destroyed. They had been captured. Their crews taken prisoner by the humans and their vessels confiscated. Admiral Kethvar stood before the Emperor's throne, his four hands trembling slightly as he delivered his report. In his 200 years of service, he had never been required to announce such a devastating defeat. Your Majesty, Battle Marshal Thorak has confirmed that the humans possess technology far superior to our own. Their weapons can penetrate any defense we possess. Their ships can become invisible to our sensors or completely immune to our attacks. Most disturbing of all, they appear to have detailed knowledge of Imperial technology and tactics. Emperor Zethnos remained silent, his ancient eyes studying the tactical displays that showed the humiliating defeat of his forces. The humans had not simply won. They had demonstrated such overwhelming superiority that the battle had been more like a teaching exercise than actual warfare. "What are Battle Marshal Thorak's recommendations?" the Emperor asked. "He believes that military action against humanity is impossible with current Imperial capabilities. The humans can destroy our fleets without suffering casualties. They can capture our ships and crews at will. He recommends immediate diplomatic negotiations." Minister of Internal Security Kextal stepped forward, his scarred face showing the anger that many Imperial officials felt. "Your Majesty, we cannot negotiate with aliens as equals. It would undermine Imperial authority throughout the galaxy. If other species learn that humans can defy the Empire without consequence, it could trigger widespread rebellion." Emperor Zethnos considered this carefully. The Empire ruled through fear as much as through military might. If that fear was broken, the unity that held their civilization together could collapse. But if the humans were as powerful as the report suggested, defying them could be suicidal. "Admiral Kethvar, what do the humans want?" "According to Battle Marshal Thorak, they want nothing from us, Your Majesty. They claim to have no interest in Imperial territory or resources. They simply want to be left alone." "That is not possible," declared Minister of Colonial Affairs Dexhun. "The Empire cannot allow independent species to exist within our sphere of influence. It creates instability and encourages other species to seek independence." The Emperor stood from his throne and walked to the great window that looked out over the Imperial capital. Millions of Zephyrians lived in the city below, their lives ordered and peaceful under Imperial rule. Beyond the capital, trillions of citizens across 10,000 worlds looked to the Empire for protection and leadership. "Summon the humans," Emperor Zethnos said finally. "If they truly seek coexistence rather than conquest, let them come here and explain their intentions. But make it clear that this is not a negotiation between equals. They are being granted an audience with the Emperor of the Galaxy." 3 days later, a single human ship arrived at the Imperial capital world. The vessel was small by Imperial standards, carrying only a diplomatic party of 12 individuals. But as it approached the planet, Imperial sensors detected energy signatures that defied analysis. The ship was somehow more advanced than anything in the Imperial fleet, despite being a fraction of the size. Admiral Rebecca Torres led the human delegation as they were escorted through the Imperial palace. She wore a simple dark blue uniform with minimal decorations, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who feared nothing in the galaxy. The humans were granted an audience in the Great Hall, where Emperor Zethnos waited with his full court. As Admiral Torres entered the chamber, she showed none of the awe or intimidation that every other alien species had displayed when first seeing the heart of Imperial power. "Your Imperial Majesty," Torres said in perfect Zephyrian, offering a slight bow that was respectful but not subservient. "Humanity appreciates the opportunity to address the concerns of the Zephyrian Empire." Emperor Zethnos studied the human carefully. She appeared completely ordinary by galactic standards, yet she had commanded the fleet that humiliated Imperial forces. Her casual demeanor suggested that she considered this meeting routine business rather than a historic encounter. "Admiral Torres, humanity has demonstrated capabilities that challenge the established order of this galaxy. The Empire requires an explanation of your technology, your intentions, and your origins." Torres smiled slightly. "Your Majesty, those are 3 very different questions with 3 very complex answers. Perhaps we should start with origins, since that seems to be what puzzles the Empire most." She activated a small device that projected a holographic display into the center of the Great Hall. The display showed star charts and historical data that made the assembled Imperial officials gasp in recognition. "Humanity first encountered the Zephyrian Empire 2,047 years ago," Torres began. "During what you call the First Expansion, Imperial forces discovered several human colonies in Sector 12 Gamma. The encounters did not go well. The holographic display showed records of ancient battles between early Imperial fleets and human vessels. The humans had been significantly less advanced at that time, but even then they had fought with desperate courage against impossible odds. Your forces offered humanity the same choice you have offered every species: submission or extinction. Our ancestors chose a third option that the Empire had never encountered before. They chose to disappear. Emperor Zythnos leaned forward on his throne. The historical records show that your people destroyed their own colonies rather than submit to imperial rule. That is what we wanted you to believe, Your Majesty. In reality, our ancestors evacuated their colonies and retreated to regions of space that imperial surveys had classified as uninhabitable. We learned to live in systems with unstable stars, on worlds with toxic atmospheres, in regions of space that other species avoided. The implications were staggering. The Empire had spent 2 millennia expanding across the galaxy, confident that they were claiming empty space and conquering primitive species. But humanity had been there the entire time, watching and learning from the shadows. For 2,000 years we observed imperial expansion, Torres continued. We studied your technology, your tactics, your sociology. We learned everything about the Empire while remaining completely invisible to your sensors and your archive. Admiral Kethvar stepped forward, his face showing the shock that every imperial official was feeling. That is impossible. The Grand Archive surveys every system in the galaxy. Nothing can remain hidden from our sensors. Torres's expression became almost pitying. Admiral, your archive is impressive, but it has a fundamental flaw. It assumes that any species capable of interstellar travel will follow the same technological development path that the Empire followed. You look for energy signatures, communication patterns, and industrial signatures that match imperial standards. She activated another section of her holographic display, showing human colonies that existed in systems the Empire had surveyed multiple times, without detecting anything unusual. Humanity learned to develop differently. We learned to build cities that produce no heat signatures. We learned to power our civilization with energy sources that your sensors cannot detect. We learned to communicate using methods that your technology interprets as natural phenomena. Minister of Internal Security. Kextol's voice was tight with anger. You have been spying on the Empire for 2 millennia. That is an act of war. No, Minister. That is an act of survival. Every species that revealed itself to the Empire was given the same ultimatum. Join or die. We chose to remain hidden until we were strong enough to defend ourselves. Emperor Zythnos stood from his throne and approached the holographic display. The star charts showed the true scope of human civilization. Hundreds of worlds spread across the galaxy, all hidden from imperial detection. How many of you are there? The Emperor asked quietly. Approximately 40 billion humans across 237 worlds, Your Majesty, plus another 15 billion in mobile habitats and deep space installations. The numbers were staggering. Humanity was not a small species struggling to survive. They were a major galactic civilization that had remained completely invisible to imperial intelligence for 2,000 years. And your technology, Admiral Torres gestured to her aide, who activated another section of the display. The hologram now showed comparisons between imperial and human capabilities in various fields. In most areas, humanity is approximately 50 to 100 years ahead of current imperial technology. In some specific areas, quantum mechanics, gravitational manipulation, space-time engineering, we are considerably further advanced. How is that possible? Demanded Minister of Colonial Affairs Dexon. The Empire has the combined knowledge of hundreds of conquered species. How could a single species surpass our capabilities? Because, Minister, the Empire's approach to technological development is fundamentally flawed. You conquer primitive species and absorb their knowledge, but you never encounter species that are more advanced than yourselves. You have been learning from your inferiors for 3,000 years. Torres activated the final section of her display, showing detailed analysis of imperial technology and tactics. Humanity, on the other hand, has spent 2,000 years studying a civilization more advanced than ourselves. We learned everything the Empire knew, then built upon that knowledge without the constraints of imperial assumptions and limitations. Emperor Zythnos returned to his throne, his ancient mind processing the implications of what he was hearing. The Empire had believed itself to be the apex of galactic civilization, but humanity had been surpassing them for centuries, while remaining completely hidden. What do you want from the Empire, Admiral Torres? Nothing, Your Majesty. Humanity has no interest in imperial territory, imperial resources, or imperial citizens. We simply want to exist without interference. And if the Empire cannot accept human independence? Torres's expression became serious for the first time during the audience. Then the Empire will learn why humanity spent 2,000 years preparing for this conversation. The threat was delivered calmly, without emotion, but every person in the Great Hall understood its implications. Humanity had demonstrated the ability to destroy Imperial fleets without suffering casualties. If they chose to become aggressive, the Empire might not survive the encounter. Your Majesty, Torres continued, humanity offers the Empire a simple arrangement. We will share some of our technological advances with you. Improvements to your medicine, your energy systems, your manufacturing processes. In return, the Empire officially recognizes human independence and agrees to respect our territorial boundaries. Minister Kextal started to object, but Emperor Zithnos silenced him with a gesture. The Emperor had ruled for 800 years by knowing when to fight and when to negotiate. This was clearly a time for negotiation. What technological advances? Torres's aide stepped forward and presented a data crystal to Admiral Kethvar. Medical techniques that can extend Zephyrian lifespan by 30%. Energy systems that are twice as efficient as current Imperial technology. Manufacturing processes that can increase production by 40% while reducing resource consumption. The Emperor studied the data crystal, then looked back at Admiral Torres. These are gifts to demonstrate good faith? These are samples, Your Majesty. Humanity is prepared to share much more advanced technology with the Empire, but only if our independence is formally recognized and guaranteed. Emperor Zithnos made his decision. The Empire could continue to expand across the galaxy, absorbing primitive species and growing stronger. But they would do so knowing that humanity was watching, evaluating, and preparing. The alternative was a war against an enemy that had already proven their superiority. Admiral Torres, the Zephyrian Empire hereby recognizes humanity as an independent species with sovereign rights to their territory. We propose the establishment of formal diplomatic relations between our civilizations. Humanity accepts? Your Majesty. As the human delegation departed, Emperor Zithnos remained in the Great Hall with his closest advisors. The galaxy had changed forever. The Empire was no longer the sole dominant power. There was another civilization out there, one that had been preparing for this moment for 2,000 years. Your Majesty, Admiral Kethvar asked quietly, what do we tell the other species under Imperial control? How do we explain that humanity has achieved what no other species has managed? Emperor Zithnos looked out at the lights representing his vast empire. Some of those lights might soon represent species demanding the same independence that humanity had won. The age of unchallenged Imperial dominance was ending. We tell them the truth, Admiral. We tell them that the galaxy is larger and more complex than we believed. We tell them that there are still things for the Empire to learn. He paused, considering the future that lay ahead. And we tell them that perhaps it is time for the Empire to grow in new ways, rather than simply growing larger. In the months that followed, the Grand Archive was updated with a new entry. Species human. Classification, independent sovereign. Technological level superior. Status diplomatic partners. Notes. Recommend extreme caution in all future interactions. The galaxy had learned that not all species could be conquered, and some civilizations were best approached as equals rather than subjects. Humanity had emerged from the shadows not as conquerors, but as proof that there were many paths to power in the universe. The age of the Zephyrian Empire's absolute dominance was over. The age of coexistence had begun.
The space around the human ship Endurance was quiet and dark. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge looking at the stars through the big window. She had been exploring space for 15 years but still loved seeing new places no one had ever been before. Captain, we are getting some strange readings, said Officer Kim from her station. Her voice sounded worried. Elena walked over to look at Kim's screen. Numbers and lines moved across it in patterns she did not recognize. What kind of readings? I don't know. The computer says there are ships out there, but they don't match anything in our files. Kim pressed some buttons. They're big, Captain. Really big. Elena felt her stomach get tight. The Endurance was far from Earth, farther than any human ship had gone before. They were supposed to be alone out here. How many ships? At least 12. Maybe more. Kim looked up at her captain. They're moving toward us. Elena pressed the button to talk to the whole ship. All crew, this is the captain. We have unknown ships approaching. Everyone go to your emergency stations now. Around the ship, 200 people stopped what they were doing. Scientists put down their tools. Engineers left their machines. Cooks turned off their stoves. Everyone moved fast but tried not to panic. On the bridge, more officers came running in. Chief Science Officer Dr. Wright sat at his station and started working. Captain, I'm trying to figure out what these ships are made of. The scans are showing materials I've never seen before. Can we talk to them? Elena asked. Communications Officer Santos shook his head. I've tried every frequency we know. They're not answering. Actually, I don't think they want to talk. Elena watched the dots on the screen get closer. Each dot was a ship bigger than anything humans had ever built. How long until they reach us? 10 minutes, Kim said quietly. Elena thought fast. The Endurance was not a fighting ship. It was made for exploring and learning, not for war. They had some small weapons for protection against space rocks and pirates, but nothing that could fight 12 giant alien ships. Santos, send a message on all frequencies. Tell them we are peaceful explorers from Earth. Tell them we don't want to fight. Santos worked at his station. Message sent, Captain. They waited. The alien ships kept coming. 5 minutes, Kim said. Elena looked around the bridge at her crew. These were good people. Smart people. They had families back on Earth. They did not deserve to die out here in the dark between stars. Santos, any answer to our message? Nothing, Captain. They're not even slowing down. Dr. Wright looked up from his screen. His face was pale. Captain, I'm reading massive energy buildup in their ships. Whatever they're planning to do, they're getting ready to do it. Elena made a decision. Kim, prepare to run. Set course for the nearest human colony. Full speed. Course ready, Captain. Santos, send one more message. Tell them we're leaving. Tell them we don't want any trouble. The alien ships were close now. Elena could see them on the main screen. They looked like metal mountains with strange spikes and glowing parts. They moved in perfect formation like they had practiced this many times before. Captain, Dr. Wright said, his voice shaking. Energy spike detected. They're charging some kind of weapon. Kim, go. Now. Kim's hands flew over her controls. The Endurance's engines roared to life. The ship started to turn away from the alien fleet. But it was too late. A wave of blue energy shot out from the lead alien ship. It moved faster than anything Elena had ever seen. The wave hit the Endurance like a giant invisible hand. Every light on the ship went out. Every screen went black. Every machine stopped working. The engines died. Even the air recycling systems went quiet. Elena felt her feet leave the floor as the ship's artificial gravity failed. Around her, the bridge crew floated in the darkness. Emergency lights should have come on, but they didn't. Nothing worked. Santos, Elena called out in the dark. Santos, are you okay? I'm here, Captain, came his voice from somewhere to her left. But everything's dead. Communications, engines, life support, everything. Elena felt around until she found a wall to push against. She floated toward where she thought the captain's chair was. Everyone sound off. Tell me you're alive. One by one, her bridge crew called out their names. They were all alive, but they were floating helpless in a dead ship. Through the big window, Elena could see the alien ships. They had stopped moving and were just sitting there, watching. Waiting. They disabled us, Elena said quietly. They could have destroyed us, but they disabled us instead. Why would they do that? Kim asked. Elena watched the alien ships and felt anger growing in her chest. These aliens had attacked without warning. They had not tried to talk. They had not given humans a chance to explain or leave peacefully. They had just attacked. Because they're afraid of us, Elena said. They saw our ship and got scared. So scared they had to stop us before we could do anything. Afraid of us? Dr. Wright sounded confused. But their ships are so much bigger than ours. Elena smiled in the darkness, but it was not a happy smile. Yes, they're afraid. And you know what? Maybe they should be. Outside the window, the alien ships began to move again. They were coming closer to the helpless human ship. Whatever they planned to do next, Elena knew it would not be good for her crew. But Elena Vasquez had been in space for 15 years. She had survived equipment failures, space storms, and pirate attacks. She was not going to let some scared aliens hurt her people without a fight. Listen up, everyone, she said to her floating crew. We're not dead yet. And as long as we're alive, we can find a way out of this. Those aliens made one big mistake. What mistake? Santos asked. Elena's smile got wider and colder. They left us alive. 2 hours had passed since the alien attack. The Endurance drifted in space like a dead whale. Inside the ship, Captain Elena Vasquez floated through the dark hallways with a small flashlight. The beam cut through the blackness as she checked on her crew. Most people were gathered in the main dining hall. It was the biggest room on the ship and had windows so they could see outside. Emergency air bottles gave them oxygen to breathe, but Elena knew they would not last long with 200 people. Captain, called Chief Engineer Marcus Torres. He was a big man with rough hands and grease always under his fingernails. I've been checking the damage. That weapon they used, it fried every electronic circuit on the ship. Even the backup systems are dead. Elena floated over to him. How long to fix it? Marcus shook his head. With normal tools and parts. Maybe never. That energy wave burned out everything with a computer chip. The engines, life support, communications, even the coffee makers. But you have an idea, Elena said. She could see it in his eyes. Maybe. But it would be crazy. I'd have to rebuild basic systems from scratch using old parts that don't have computer chips. Stuff from the emergency repair kit that's still mechanical. Before Elena could answer, someone by the windows shouted. Captain! Look outside. Elena pushed off from the wall and floated to the nearest window. What she saw made her blood run cold. 3 alien ships had moved very close to the Endurance. They were so big they blocked out the stars. As Elena watched, bright lights appeared on the sides of the ships. The lights were cutting through the hull of her ship like hot knives through butter. They're coming inside, whispered Dr. Wright. The cutting stopped. Elena could hear new sounds through the ship's walls. Clanging metal. Footsteps that didn't sound human. Voices speaking in a language no human had ever heard. Everyone stay calm, Elena said loudly. Remember your emergency training. We are peaceful explorers. We will cooperate and try to communicate. But Elena's hand moved to the small knife on her belt. She hoped they would not need to fight, but she was ready if they did. The aliens came through the holes they had cut. Elena got her first look at humanity's enemies. They were tall, maybe 8 feet, with gray skin that looked like stone. They had 4 arms and wore dark armor that covered most of their bodies. Their faces were long with big black eyes and no nose that Elena could see. They moved like soldiers, careful and alert. The lead alien said something in its language. The words sounded like rocks grinding together. When no one answered, it pointed a weapon at the nearest human. "Wait," Elena called out. She pushed off from the wall and floated toward the alien. "I'm the captain of this ship. I speak for my people." The alien looked at her. Its black eyes showed no emotion Elena could understand. It said something to the other aliens. More aliens came through the holes carrying strange devices. For the next hour, the aliens worked. They pointed their devices at everything on the ship. The devices made beeping sounds and flashed lights. Elena realized they were scanning and recording everything they found. The aliens seemed confused by human technology. They would scan something, then scan it again. They talked to each other in their grinding voices. Elena could tell they were puzzled. One alien found a tablet computer. It was dead like everything else, but the alien spent a long time scanning it. Another alien found the ship's kitchen and seemed very interested in the microwave oven. Dr. Wright floated next to Elena. "They're cataloging our technology," he whispered. "But they seem surprised by what they're finding." "What do you mean?" "Look at them. They expected to find either very advanced technology or very primitive technology. Our stuff is neither. It's different from what they know." Elena watched the aliens work. Dr. Wright was right. The aliens acted like they were seeing something they had never seen before. Something that didn't fit their ideas about how technology should work. Meanwhile, Marcus Torres had floated away from the main group. Elena saw him disappear into a maintenance tunnel that was too small for the tall aliens to follow. She hoped he was working on his crazy plan to fix the ship. The aliens began taking prisoners. They pointed their weapons at humans and made gestures that clearly meant "come with us." They took Dr. Wright first, probably because he was the science officer. Then they took some of the engineers and computer specialists. "Where are you taking them?" Elena demanded. The lead alien looked at her but did not answer. Elena realized these aliens had no interest in communicating with humans. To them, humans were just another species to study and control. But as the hours passed, Elena noticed something important. The aliens were being careful not to hurt anyone. They could have killed all the humans easily, but they didn't. They wanted prisoners alive. They need us for something, Elena thought. They're studying our technology and taking our people. But why? She got her answer when one of the aliens brought a device to her. The device showed pictures on a small screen. The pictures showed human ships, but not ships Elena recognized. These ships looked older and different from the Endurance. The alien pointed at the pictures, then at Elena. It was asking if she knew about these ships. Elena's heart jumped. The pictures showed human ships that looked like they were from Earth's early space age, maybe 100 years ago. Ships that were supposed to be lost forever. "You've met humans before," Elena said quietly. "That's why you're afraid of us." The alien stared at her with its black eyes. Elena couldn't tell what it was thinking, but she knew she was right. These aliens had fought humans before, long ago. And something about that fight had scared them so much they still remembered it. More aliens came aboard the Endurance. They brought bigger scanning devices and started taking apart pieces of human equipment. Elena watched them work and realized they were not just studying human technology. They were trying to understand it. But Elena smiled to herself. Let them study all they wanted. Human technology wasn't special because of what it could do. It was special because of how humans thought about problems. And these aliens, for all their advanced weapons and big ships, thought like machines. Humans thought like humans. And that was something no alien could understand by scanning their equipment. Somewhere in the maintenance tunnels, Marcus Torres was proving that point. Elena could hear very quiet sounds of someone working with metal tools. The aliens were so busy with their scanning that they didn't notice. Elena hoped Marcus could work fast. Because she was starting to get an idea. A dangerous idea. But first, they needed power. 6 hours after the aliens boarded the Endurance, Captain Elena Vasquez felt a tiny vibration through the ship's walls. It was so small that only someone who had lived on ships for 15 years would notice it. The aliens didn't notice at all. Marcus Torres had done it. Somewhere deep in the ship's belly, he had gotten something working again. Elena was floating in the dining hall with about 50 other crew members. The aliens had taken many people away for questioning, but they left the rest here under guard. 2 tall gray aliens watched them with their black eyes and energy weapons. Elena needed to tell her crew that power was coming back, but she couldn't let the aliens know. She floated over to Security Chief Sarah Chen, a small woman with quick eyes and faster hands. "Sarah," Elena whispered, pretending to comfort her. "Can you feel that?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then her eyes got wide. "The ship's heartbeat," she whispered back. "Marcus got something running. Pass the word quietly. But don't let the guard see." Sarah nodded and began floating between crew members. She would hug someone or pat their shoulder, and whisper a few words. Soon everyone in the room knew that their ship was waking up. Elena watched the alien guards. They stood perfectly still like statues. They never talked to each other or moved unless they had to. Elena realized that these aliens followed orders exactly and never thought for themselves. That was their weakness. Elena made her move. She floated toward one of the guards and started talking loudly. "Please, I need to check on my injured crew members in the medical bay. Some of my people are hurt and need help." The guard looked at her but said nothing. Elena kept talking, waving her hands and acting worried. While the guard watched her, Sarah Chen moved silently behind the second guard. Elena had learned something important about these aliens. They wore their weapons on their belts, but the weapons had safety locks. The aliens had to press 2 buttons at the same time to fire. It was a smart safety feature, but it took time. Sarah didn't need time. She hit the second guard in the back of his long neck with her fist. The alien made a choking sound and fell forward. Before the first guard could reach for his weapon, 3 more crew members grabbed his arms. "Don't hurt them," Elena ordered quickly. "We're not killers." They tied up the guards with electrical cables and put them in a storage closet. Sarah took their weapons and studied them quickly. "I think I can figure out how these work," she said. "The trigger system is different, but the basic idea is the same." Elena pressed the wall communication button, hoping Marcus had fixed the internal systems. Her voice echoed through the ship. "All crew, this is the captain. The ship is coming back online. It's time to take back our home." Around the ship, humans began to move. They had been waiting and planning during the long hours of capture. Now they put their plans into action. In the engine room, Marcus Torres smiled as he heard Elena's voice. He had been working non-stop to rebuild the ship's basic systems using parts that didn't need computer chips. Old mechanical switches, hand-cranked generators, and backup systems from the early days of space travel. The aliens had disabled everything electronic, but they didn't understand that humans built backups for their backups. Marcus had found systems that were older than the aliens probably thought possible. "Computer, this is Marcus," he said into his radio. "I've got life support running on emergency power. Gravity will come back in 10 minutes. Lights are working on decks 1 through 3. In the medical bay, Dr. Wright was being questioned by 2 aliens. They were showing him pictures and making him point to different human body parts. Dr. Wright was answering their questions, but he was also learning about them. He noticed that the aliens had trouble seeing in different kinds of light. Their eyes were made for the blue light their ships used, but human ships used white light. In white light, the aliens seemed almost blind. When the ship's lights came back on, Dr. Wright was ready. He grabbed a medical scanner and shined its bright white beam into the aliens' faces. They stumbled backward, covering their eyes with their hands. Dr. Wright ran for the door and locked it behind him. He could hear the aliens hitting the door, but human doors were built to survive space emergencies. They wouldn't break easily. In the computer center, engineer Lisa Park was tied to a chair while aliens studied human computers. When the lights came back on, Lisa noticed something the aliens hadn't. The computers were dead, but the screens were working on emergency power. Lisa knew every circuit in those computers. She began to rock her chair back and forth until she could reach a hidden panel with her foot. Inside the panel was a manual override switch for the ship's fire safety system. She pressed the switch with her toe. Water began spraying from every ceiling sprinkler on the deck. The aliens jumped back in surprise. Their scanning equipment sparked and smoked when the water hit it. Lisa used the confusion to break free from her ropes. She grabbed a fire extinguisher and sprayed foam at the aliens. They couldn't see through the white foam, and their equipment was ruined. All over the ship, humans were fighting back. But they weren't fighting like soldiers. They were fighting like engineers and scientists and cooks and janitors. They used what they knew and what they had. In the kitchen, Cook Rodriguez trapped 2 aliens by turning on all the ovens and filling the room with heat and steam. The aliens, who came from a cold world, couldn't handle the temperature. In the workshop, Mechanic Johnson used magnetic clamps meant for holding metal parts. He turned up the power and stuck the clamps to the aliens' metal armor. They couldn't move while wearing 100-pound magnets. But the most important fight was happening in the cargo bay. This was where the aliens had set up their main base on the ship. 20 aliens were there with their leader and their most important equipment. Sarah Chen led a team of 12 humans into the cargo bay. They didn't try to fight the aliens directly. Instead, they did something no alien would expect. They started throwing things. The cargo bay was full of containers holding everything the Endurance needed for its mission. Food containers, toolboxes, spare parts, scientific equipment. Sarah's team began hurling these containers at the aliens like giant bullets. The aliens tried to use their energy weapons, but they couldn't hit moving targets that changed direction every second. Human throwing was not logical or predictable. It was creative and chaotic. While the aliens were dodging flying containers, Sarah and 2 others crawled under the cargo to reach the alien equipment. They began unplugging cables and pushing buttons randomly. We don't need to understand their technology, Sarah thought. We just need to break it. Alarms began sounding from the alien base. Sarah had found something important. She didn't know what it was, but it was making a lot of noise. The alien leader shouted orders in its grinding language. The other aliens stopped fighting and began running toward their damaged equipment. That was exactly what Sarah wanted. While the aliens were busy trying to fix their machines, the humans escaped through the air vents. Elena's voice came over the ship's communication system again. All crew, report to emergency stations. We're taking back our ship, 1 room at a time. Remember, we don't need to beat them with technology. We just need to be more human than they can handle. Around the ship, Elena could hear sounds of fighting, running, and things breaking. It wasn't pretty or organized, but it was working. The aliens had expected to fight either primitives with clubs or advanced beings with energy weapons. They had not expected to fight humans with fire extinguishers and cooking equipment and pure stubborn creativity. Elena smiled as she floated toward the bridge. It was time to take back the heart of her ship. Captain Elena Vasquez floated onto the bridge of the Endurance and felt her boots touch the floor. Marcus Torres had brought the gravity back online. Around her, the bridge was coming back to life. Lights flickered on, screens showed basic information, and the air felt fresh again. "Status report," Elena said as her crew took their stations. "Main engine still dead," reported Kim from navigation. "But Marcus has the maneuvering thrusters working. We can move, just not very fast." "Communications working on short range," said Santos. "I can talk to our people around the ship, but not to Earth." "Weapons?" Elena asked Sarah Chen, who had taken over the security station. Sarah shook her head. "The mining lasers are still fried. But Marcus thinks he can get them working in a different way." Elena looked out the main window at the alien ships. They hung in space like metal mountains, waiting. She could see lights flashing on their hulls. Probably emergency signals as they tried to figure out what was happening on the human ship. "They think we're still helpless," Elena said. "Let's keep it that way." "Santos, try to contact the alien fleet. Tell them we surrender and want to talk." Santos worked at his station. "Message sent, Captain." Elena knew the aliens would not answer, but the message would make them think the humans were giving up. That was what Elena wanted them to think. Marcus Torres came onto the bridge. His clothes were torn and his face was black with grease, but he was smiling. "Captain, I've done something crazy with our mining equipment," he said. "Remember those asteroid mining lasers we used to cut up rocks?" "Of course. Well, I rewired them to work like the old laser cutting tools from 100 years ago. No computer chips, just raw power and manual controls. They won't be as accurate as before, but they'll cut through anything." Elena felt hope growing in her chest. "How many do we have working?" 6 lasers. 3 on each side of the ship." "But Captain, that's not the best part." Marcus grinned. "I also figured out how to turn our cargo bay into a giant slingshot." "What do you mean?" "We have magnetic cargo launchers for moving heavy containers. I hooked them up to manual controls and cranked up the power. We can shoot anything in our cargo bay at enemy ships like a cannonball." Dr. Wright came onto the bridge holding a data pad. "Captain, I've learned something important about these aliens. They see mostly in blue light. That's why their ships glow blue and their weapons are blue. But human lasers are red light. I don't think their eyes can see red very well." Elena thought about this information. Red lasers that the aliens couldn't see well, and a ship they thought was still disabled. She was starting to get an idea. "Marcus, can you aim those lasers manually?" "Yes, ma'am. Just like the old days when humans had to do everything by hand." "Good. Sarah, how many aliens are still on our ship?" "Maybe 30 scattered around different decks. My teams have most of them trapped in storage rooms." Elena walked to the captain's chair and sat down. For the first time in hours, she felt like she was in control again. "All right, people. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to show these aliens why they were right to be afraid of humans." Outside the ship, the alien fleet was getting impatient. Elena could see small ships leaving the big vessels and heading toward the Endurance. They were coming to check on their boarding party. "Santos, patch me through to the whole ship," Elena ordered. "You're on, Captain." "All crew, this is Captain Vasquez. In 2 minutes, we're going to attack the alien fleet." "I know that sounds crazy. Their ships are bigger and stronger than ours. But we have something they don't have. We have human stubbornness." Around the ship, people stopped what they were doing to listen. "These aliens think they know how space battles work. They think bigger ships always win. They think better technology always wins. But they've never fought humans before. Not real humans." Elena looked out at the alien ships and her voice got harder. They disabled our ship because they were afraid of it. They were afraid of us. Well, we're going to give them a reason to be afraid. We're going to fight them with everything we have. Mining lasers, cargo launchers, and pure human stubbornness. Are you ready? All over the ship, voices answered her. Ready, Captain. Marcus, fire up those mining lasers. Kim, point us at the nearest alien ship. Sarah, load the cargo launchers with everything heavy we can find. The Endurance began to move. Slowly at first, then faster as Marcus got more power to the thrusters. The alien ship seemed surprised that the human vessel was moving at all. Target the lead ship, Elena ordered. The big one in the center. Lasers ready, Marcus reported from the engineering station he had set up on the bridge. The alien ships began to move. They were turning to face the small human ship that dared to challenge them. Elena could see weapon ports opening on their hulls. Fire! Elena shouted. 6 red laser beams shot out from the Endurance. They were not the clean, precise beams of advanced technology. They were rough, powerful, and angry. They hit the alien ship's hull and began cutting through it like hot knives through ice. The alien ship's shields flashed and sparked. Elena realized that their shields were designed to stop blue energy weapons, not red ones. The human lasers were a different type of energy that the alien defenses couldn't handle properly. It's working. Kim shouted. Their shields are failing. Cargo launchers ready, Sarah reported. Fire everything. The magnetic launchers shot containers full of metal parts, tools, and equipment at the alien ships. The containers moved fast, much faster than the aliens expected. They slammed into alien hulls and exploded, sending pieces of metal flying in all directions. The alien fleet began shooting back. Blue energy beams reached out toward the Endurance, but Elena was ready for them. Kim, random evasive maneuvers. Don't follow any pattern. Just dodge however feels right. Kim's hands danced over her controls. The Endurance twisted and turned through space like a fish swimming through water. The alien weapons were designed to hit targets that moved in logical, predictable ways. They couldn't hit a ship that moved like it was being flown by someone having fun. Marcus, target their weapons. Elena ordered. The mining lasers focused on the alien weapon ports. Red beams cut through blue energy systems, causing explosions that lit up the alien hulls like fireworks. Dr. Wright was watching his sensors. Captain, I'm reading massive confusion in their fleet. Their communications are going crazy. I think they don't understand what's happening. Elena smiled grimly. They're trying to fight a machine war against humans. Santos, open a channel to the alien fleet. Channel open. Attention alien ships, Elena said in her strongest captain voice. You disabled our ship because you were afraid of it. You were right to be afraid. But you made one mistake. You left us alive. And humans don't stay down when someone tries to keep us down. More containers shot out from the Endurance's cargo launchers. These ones were filled with the ship's spare parts and broken electronics. When they hit the alien ships, they spread clouds of metal pieces that confused the alien sensors. You wanted to study human technology, Elena continued. Here's the most important thing about human technology. It's not about having the best computers or the strongest weapons. It's about humans who refuse to give up. The lead alien ship was badly damaged now. Its blue lights were flickering and it was moving slowly. But Elena wasn't done. Sarah, do we have any of those emergency beacon rockets? Yes, ma'am. About 20 of them. Load them into the launchers. But first, fill them with everything flammable we can find. Cooking oil, cleaning chemicals, anything that burns. Elena's plan was simple and terrible. The beacon rockets were meant to signal for help, but they could also carry other things. Things that would make very big fires when they hit alien ships. The first rocket hit an alien ship near its engine section. Fire bloomed across the alien hull as the cooking oil ignited. The aliens had never seen fire used as a weapon in space. Their damage control systems didn't know how to handle it. More rockets. Elena ordered. The Endurance shot rocket after rocket at the alien fleet. Each one carried fire and chaos. The alien ships began to retreat, pulling back from the small human vessel that fought like nothing they had ever seen. But Elena wasn't finished yet. She had one more surprise for the aliens who had thought they could easily defeat humanity. Captain Elena Vasquez watched the alien fleet retreat and knew this fight was not over. The aliens were pulling back to think, but they would return with more ships and better plans. She had to end this now, while they were still confused and afraid. Marcus, she called to her chief engineer. How much power do we have left? Maybe 30%, Captain. Those lasers use a lot of energy. Elena looked at the main screen. 3 alien ships were badly damaged and drifting. But 9 more ships were still healthy and dangerous. They were moving into a new formation, probably getting ready for another attack. Santos, are you getting any signals from those damaged alien ships? Santos listened to his equipment. Yes, ma'am. Lots of emergency calls. And Captain, I'm picking up something else. The aliens are talking about something called the Old Enemy and the ghost ships. Elena felt a chill run down her back. She remembered the pictures the aliens had shown her earlier. Pictures of old human ships that were supposed to be lost. Dr. Wright, those pictures the aliens showed us. What did you think of those ships? Dr. Wright looked up from his science station. They looked like early colony ships, Captain. From maybe 80 years ago. Ships that went out to explore but never came back. Elena pieced it together in her mind. The aliens had fought humans before, long ago. Ships full of colonists and explorers who had run into the alien empire. Those humans had probably been outnumbered and outgunned, just like the Endurance was now. But somehow, those long-ago humans had scared the aliens so badly that they still remembered the fear. Santos, try to hack into the alien communications. I want to know what they're really afraid of. While Santos worked, Elena planned her final attack. She had one card left to play, and it was the most dangerous one of all. Sarah, how many of our people are trained for spacewalk repair work? About 50, Captain. Why? Elena smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone about to do something very dangerous and very stupid. Because we're going to board their ships. The bridge went quiet. Everyone stared at Elena like she had lost her mind. Captain, Dr. Wright said carefully, their ships are much bigger than ours. They probably have thousands of crew members. Exactly, Elena said. Which is why they'll never expect it. Marcus, do we still have the mining suits? Marcus nodded slowly. Yes, ma'am. 20 heavy work suits designed for asteroid mining. They're built to survive anything. Good. Sarah, pick 19 volunteers. People who aren't afraid of small spaces and hard work. Elena turned to the main screen and studied the alien ships. They were waiting for her to either surrender or run away. They had no idea what humans could do when they stopped following the rules. Santos suddenly looked up from his station. Captain, I broke into their communications. You need to hear this. He put the alien voices on the bridge speakers. The words were translated by the ship's computer into basic English. Command ship to fleet. The humans are fighting like the old enemy. They use fire and metal as weapons. They do not follow proper battle rules. Another voice answered. Fleet Commander, we must retreat. These humans have the same madness as the ghost ships. They will sacrifice themselves to hurt us. A third voice, older and more frightened, spoke. 80 years ago, a single human colony ship destroyed 6 of our finest vessels before we stopped it. The humans filled their ship with explosives and rammed our command ship. They sang while they died. Elena felt tears in her eyes. Those long ago humans had given their lives to protect other human colonies. They had made the aliens so afraid that the aliens still had nightmares about fighting humans. They died so other humans could live, Elena said quietly. And now these aliens think every human ship is full of crazy people who will die before giving up. Santos was still listening to the alien communications. Captain, they're arguing about whether to destroy us or run away. Some of them want to kill us before we can ram their ships. Elena made her decision. We're going to give them exactly what they're afraid of. But we're not going to die doing it. She pressed the button to talk to the whole ship. All crew, this is the captain. I'm about to tell you the plan for winning this fight. It's dangerous and it's crazy, but it's also very human. Around the ship, people stopped working to listen. 80 years ago, humans fought these aliens and scared them so badly they still have nightmares about it. Those humans won by doing something the aliens never expected. They used their ship as a weapon. Elena looked out at the alien fleet. We're going to do the same thing. But we're going to live through it. The plan Elena explained was simple and terrifying. They would use the mining suits to put a small crew on the alien command ship. While that crew caused chaos inside, the Endurance would ram the command ship, but at the last second, the mining suits would blow a hole in the alien hull and the Endurance would fly through it instead of into it. It's never been done before, Elena admitted. But that's what makes it human. 20 people volunteered for the boarding mission. Elena would lead them personally. Saracen would command the ship while Elena was gone. They put on the heavy mining suits and loaded into the cargo bay. The suits were built like small spaceships, with their own air and power. They had cutting tools, magnetic boots, and small rocket thrusters. Remember, Elena said over the suit radios. Our job is not to fight their whole crew. Our job is to break things and confuse them. Make them think there are 100 humans on their ship instead of 20. The cargo bay doors opened. 20 humans in mining suits flew through space toward the largest alien ship. They moved fast and stayed close together, looking like a cloud of metal asteroids. The aliens saw them coming but couldn't figure out what they were looking at. The humans were too small to be attack ships and too fast to be escape pods. Elena's suit hit the alien hull first. She used her cutting torch to burn through the metal. Behind her, 19 other humans did the same thing. In seconds, they had 20 holes in the alien ship. Inside the alien ship, alarms started screaming. The aliens had never dealt with boarders who came through the walls instead of through doors. Elena and her team spread out through the ship. They cut power cables, broke computer screens, and set small fires wherever they could.